What's up guys, Austin from Billetworkz here. Today I'm going to show you how to install our 13 to 21 BRZ FR-S 86 short shifter. Now our short shifter features 30% shorter throws in stock. It offers multiple reverse lockout color options, and of course you can pair it with a Billetworkz shift knob in any shape, any color, with any engraving. So let's get into the install. So the first few steps, we're going to remove the shift knob. That will just thread right off. We're going to remove the e-brake boot. I recommend grabbing the boot and pulling straight up. And then there's two 10mm bolts holding the center console in. That'll be under this little cover here. So next step is we're going to remove the two panels on both sides of the console. They're going to be right below the knee rests. These two panels will just pop straight off sideways. Next step, we're going to have to get our hands in through those access panels now and push on the back of this trim piece. It might be easier to try and push the USB ports out first and remove that to give you some more room, but I'm going to try and just get behind everything and just push it out. It might take some force. Then once you have that out, we can just unplug some of these cables. That will give us access to these two Phillips head bolts. Next step, I'm going to remove this silver trim piece with the boot. I'm going to pull that straight up and we'll pull the boot up over the reverse lockout. Then we'll just disconnect these wires. That will give us access to two more Phillips head bolts that we'll remove. So next step is we're going to remove the center console. Now just remember, if you have heated seats and the cigarette lighter, you'll have to disconnect those wires. I recommend lifting up on the back of the center console first and pulling straight out. So next we'll remove these two white caps. This car is missing one, but these you can just thread right off. Then we'll remove this wire here that just pops out of this metal clip. Then we can remove this rubber boot thing. That gives us access now to these 12mm bolts. Once we have those four 12mm bolts out, we can remove this metal ring. Then we can remove this rubber boot. Next step is we need to remove this metal clip here. You'll just need to pry it apart and push it through the hole. So it is easy. You can just push on this rounded edge here. When you push on that, it'll expand the clip and it'll just slide right out. You just want to make sure you don't drop it. Next, there's a metal washer on there behind that metal clip that we want to make sure we remove. You don't want to drop that, but if you do drop it or the clip, it should just hit the ground. Then with the washer and the clip removed, we can push the linkage out of the bottom of the shifter. I'm going to get in here. It might help to push the shifter over to 5th and 6th to get it completely off. Now we'll remove the four 10mm bolts here, and then we'll be able to pull the shifter completely out. Now we will need to transfer over this rubber boot here. That'll just slide right off the stock shifter, and then we'll transfer that over to the Billetworkz shifter. Now once we do get that boot reinstalled on the Billetworkz short shifter, I would recommend putting some grease on the pivot here and maybe a little bit of grease on the inside of these bushings, but more importantly on this pivot. I'm just going to go ahead and install this for now to save a little bit of time on the install video. But then once you get some grease in there, then we can just slide this down in. Now when we install it, we want to make sure that this angle of the pivot here is pointing towards the back of the car, and also you can reference this extrusion here needs to be pointing to the left. That's used for the shifter stop. So we can slide that right down in there. Put some pressure on it to make sure that seats properly. Now you do want to make sure that boot is seated properly down below. You might have to get underneath and kind of pull it out if it's caught up. And then next we want to make sure we take our shifter stop plate and reinstall that with those 10mm bolts. Now I'm not going to make them super tight. I just want to get them kind of snug so we can reinstall the linkage into the bottom of the Billetworkz shifter. Then once you have that linkage back through, we'll reinstall our metal washer. And then you can reinstall your metal clip here. Now that we have the metal clip reinstalled, we'll need to adjust our stop here. Now this stop is for reverse, so if you still have your bolts snug, we'll loosen them just a tiny bit. So we can shift this over. I'm going to put the car in first and move this stop over to where it just kind of barely touches, but just gives a little bit of clearance. And now I'll check the functionality of reverse. So we can get over into first, we're into second. We had to pull up on the reverse lockout to get it over into reverse. Put it back in neutral, can't engage reverse. There's first, second, third, fourth. So you just want to make sure you have that clearance for first gear. Looks good. So now we can start putting everything back together. Now that we have everything put back together, I'm going to go ahead and install a Billetworkz shift knob. This is our Fusion here with a 6-speed left up engraving with the Alcantara core and a matte black finish. First, I'll thread on the jam nut. I want to thread that down the whole way. We'll just make sure that we can engage reverse. We're still good. Then we can thread on the aluminum insert. We'll thread that the whole way down. Then we'll lock these two together with 2 wrenches. You can use a 17 and a 19. I just have an adjustable and a 3/4. 3/4 is about the same as a 19. So we'll tighten those together. Then we'll spin the shift knob down. Now you'll see here the engraving is crooked. So all we have to do is readjust the insert and the jam nut, and it's off by about 90 degrees. So I'm just going to readjust those about 90 degrees. This might take a few tries. Thread that back on. Nope, we'll go a little bit more. Now doing all these adjustments allows for the reverse lockout clearance, but still able to align the engraving. So that actually looks pretty good there. We'll just double check reverse. That looks good. Go first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Now we're completely finished with the install with the 30% shorter throws. Throws are short, crisp. The shifter is great for street driving or track use. Of course, with the lockout design and the Fusion knob, it's got a very good OEM fit and finish. So if you have any other questions, shoot us an email or you can visit our website. We'll see you next time.